Hello and welcome to Last Orders. I'm David Wood. Coming up on tonight's programme, flagging the issue. Is this national emblem a symbol of expression of patriotism, or has it now become something more subversive? Field of dreams, or is it a nightmare for those living nearby? We'll be discussing solar power. And come fly with me. Well, in 3 years' time, Doncaster Sheffield Airport prepares for takeoff again. And joining me tonight to discuss all of that, we have the Labour MP for Doncaster East and the Isle of Axholme, Lee Pitcher. Alongside him for the Conservatives, it's Dr Caroline Johnson, the MP for Sleaford and North Hykeham, who was the Health Minister in the last Tory government. And Tom Gordon's here for the Liberal Democrats, the MP for Harrogate and Knaresborough. Thank you all for coming in tonight. Well, let's start with a thorny issue. Is flying the flag of St George simply patriotic, or does it wave a threat at those who some perceive are not English? Frankly, is it pride or prejudice? Well, the proliferation of the St George's Cross flags and markings is seen by some as a reaction to the housing of asylum seekers in hotels. That's something the Labour government has promised to end. We've been speaking to people in York as well as a councillor in Leeds who suffered racial abuse on a recent UK holiday.
I don't mind if they're up for the right reasons, just if it's for the wrong reasons, I don't really agree with it.
I do feel that there's an undertone of the wrong reasons, so I think it should all be quite nice and inclusive.
I don't mind the flags at all. Obviously, I'm British.
When I was growing up, this sort of thing was regular. It went through a really nice period where where I felt we'd got over this kind of explicit, kind of overt racism. But it's horrible to see it rearing its ugly head again, where people feel confident enough to do that sort of thing.
Well, Tom Gordon, let's start with you. Obviously, very personal there for the councillor. What's your overall opinion of seeing these flags? We have seen it quite a bit in the summer right across the country.
Yeah, I think the points that have just been made in the video package there by a number of people is it's about the reason that people are doing this. I'm a proud Brit, proud Englishman. I think, there's absolutely a case to be made about showing patriotism, but when that becomes something that's done to stoke fear and division, it's not for the right reasons. And I do think, we experienced some graffiti in Harrogate on the Stray, telling people to go home, and it's now becoming a bit ugly. And I think we really need to question what the intent of this campaign that is going on is about.
When you see them, do you think all of the flags have gone up have been because of that bad intent to sort of make a statement about what Englishness is? Or do you think there are people who are doing it because they want to be patriotic and show they're proud of their country? I
mean, what we've heard is it's small groups of people travelling around putting them up. Sometimes it's people not from the local area where they're doing it. I think, it begs a question on why. And I think, what we've seen people organising in Facebook groups and various bits of social media online is it is with a bit of a malign intent.
Caroline Johnson, we saw with your party when it was in government, and we've seen it with Labour in government as well, sort of the Prime Ministers and Ministers proudly with the Union flag. Should we be as proud of the St George's flag? Absolutely.
We should be proud of our flags, whether that be the Lincolnshire county flag, the English flag, or the Union Jack, Union flag. It's a sign of pride and it's unifying. We're all unified. We're all British. We're all English behind we stand up proud beside the flag. I don't understand why people see it's a malign intent. Would we question the French for putting up their flag or any other country, the Americans for having their flag? We don't. Of course we don't. It's part of the pride in the country.
This issue obviously has been fairly large over the summer, but there have been over the past few decades where the St George's flag in particular hasn't been flown as much as maybe the Welsh flag in Wales, whereas the Union flag has been flown more in England. Do you think there is a connotation and people don't see the St George's flag as English, as representing the country?
Well, St George's flag is English, and I think people are wanting to show their pride in our country, and they're wanting to do that in part by raising the flag, and I think that's a good thing.
Lee, your Labour colleague, Rachel Maskell, who's suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party but is in your party and is one of the York MPs, she was very worried and says that lots of people are emailing her about how worried they are about this. Are you experiencing the same?
I mean, I get a mixture, to be absolutely fair. I love our flag. I'm super proud to be English. I'm super proud to be British. It reminds me of the Lionesses when I see that flag. And that, to me, is about unity and it's about teamwork and it's about love for the country. I think the thing at the moment is that the flags all appearing at a time where we have seen a lot going on around asylum and small boats. And I think, therefore, it's something about timing. But I do think some people are absolutely flying them with absolute pride. Some people are flying them now because of that intent that Tom referred to.
But I do think, just on that, there is a difference between flying a flag on your own property or sticking some St George's Cross bunting up and going out and vandalising and damaging public property. And that's what we have seen. And I don't think there's ever an excuse for vandalism and spray painting on shops. That's just not what we do as a country. That's not British. That's not English.
And likewise, when it causes danger, when it's not safe to do so. So I've seen some signs that have got sprayed in red, and you can no longer see the instructions that's given, and that's not what it's meant to be.
It does put councils in a difficult position if they are in this. Caroline Johnson, some are saying they'll take them down, some have taken them down, then put them back up because they've faced criticism. Difficult decisions for councils.
I think it's reasonable for people to put up flags and support their country and show their pride in their country. Clearly, if there's a flag obstructing vision at a junction or causing a hazard in some way like that, then it would be removed. And of course, no one agrees with criminal damage, but I think it's good. I think it's a good thing to be proud of our country.
Lee, you mentioned obviously there's a lot of talk about asylum seekers, particularly being housed in hotels. The government's saying it's going to end it. We've got a new Home Secretary, a new minister, junior minister responsible for that. Is your government really going to get this sorted? Because it is a real issue out there.
There is absolutely no doubt that we see the issue that's there in front of us. And yes, we are determined and we are focused, and we will absolutely resolve this issue.
Are you frustrated that it's not happening quicker?
Do all of us want it to happen quick. We do want it to happen quickly. And I'll tell you why I want it to happen quickly, because it's a big issue for an individual, and that narrative is taking over the airwaves all the time. And it somewhat takes our energy away from also focusing on some of the other amazing things that we need to do for our country. So yes, it has to be resolved, has to be resolved quickly. And I can absolutely tell you now, we are full force pushing on to do that.
Your party struggled with this issue and various different plans. Do you have sympathy that the newish government is struggling?
Not really, because they cancelled the plan that was ready to go. We had a plan with Rwanda to ensure that people who arrived here knew they couldn't stay.
That would have meant asylum seekers were housed in hotels, though, here.
Was that the £700 million plan that only sent 3 people back who were volunteers? Is that the one where we wasted quite a significant amount of taxpayers' money?
Sometimes you have to put a lot of investment in at the beginning, and you have to build the places for them to go when they get there before you send them. And so, yes, there was investment to put into Rwanda. That money's been wasted because Labour have cancelled the plan. And what we've seen is that deterrent, which had already started to have an effect. We've seen a huge increase in the number of people coming across in small boats, since they now know if they come, they're more likely to stay.
OK, and just briefly on this, finally with you, Tom, do you have sympathy for... We've seen 2 governments now with different plans, but both struggling to get on top of it.
Well, actually, the most effective thing that the new Labour government could do would be reverse some of the implementation of the things that the Conservative government did, like allowing the processing of asylum claims in third-party countries, rolling that border back from the Channel to those countries where the asylum seekers are. That would actually stop the gangs, stop the profiteering, and actually be a more humane way to deal with this situation.
All right, I'm sure we will revisit this in future programmes, but let's move on tonight, because the road to a greener future has been and certainly will be rocky, but few doubt we need to change direction if we're to save the planet for future generations. The government's plan for 100% clean power involves offshore wind and other forms of energy like solar farms. They provide clean, renewable energy, are seen to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create local jobs. Whilst many, or no one really doubts that, where there is contention is where those farms are sited, particularly amongst those who represent the countryside.
It's causing local communities to push back against the net zero agenda entirely because they feel that they're being overwhelmed, villages are being engulfed, and landscapes are being heavily urbanised. So it is of concern. But as I said before, all areas across the country are going to have some clean energy, but we hope that the government will listen to us and put a cap on how big solar farms can actually be. So we do have to act against climate change, but we think there is definitely more of a role for rooftops and car parks and brownfield sites, so we don't have to have extreme impacts on the countryside.
All right, Caroline, let's start with you. Representing a Lincolnshire constituency, there's a lot of opposition in your constituency to this. Where do you fit in?
There is huge levels of opposition, and there has been for some time. Many of my constituents welcome green energy, but they do not like the solar farms being put in Lincolnshire. It's essentially nonsensical. If the country as a whole strategically feels the right thing to do is to cover, I believe it said 0.1% of land in solar panels, it does not make sense to concentrate those in the county of the country which produces 1/3 of vegetables and 12% of Britain's food, because that will just put food prices up for everybody and destroy our landscape and the best land for the future. We've seen huge applications, dwarfing villages going on for miles and miles and miles with massive panels. It's not what my constituents want to see, but it's also not strategically the right thing for the country either.
Lee, your fellow Doncaster MP, Ed Miliband, kept his job as Energy Secretary, although there are some reports the Prime Minister did try to remove him. There is a lot of opposition to solar farms, overtaking huge fields on our countryside. Is he wrong to be going down this route?
No, he's not wrong, is he? There is opposition, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that support it. We've just heard there, haven't we, from the person speaking, that there is a need for clean energy, and we have to do that. We have to find different sources, and solar is one of them. Let's remember, it also creates 30,000 jobs. That's twice as many jobs as that we see now in that solar kind of panel world. And actually, when I speak to some of my farmers, they're the people that see that as an income to them. So we do need to, you're right, listen to our communities, but we need to also listen to those people who are looking at it from an income point of view too.
And are those local voices, though, more important to the national voice? Because I think if you ask the country, yes, green energy would be something and cheaper energy most people would want, but they're not necessarily going to have to be the person that opens their curtains in the morning and sees a solar farm.
I mean, let me be clear, local voice is the most important to me. It's something that I'm absolutely passionate about. I'm there to stick up for and support my constituents. So it's really, really important that we do listen and we try to find a way to navigate through whatever plans we need to put in place.
It's worth pointing out this is not about NIMBYism. This is not about not putting it just here. If you look at my constituency alone, it's not the worst affected, it's one of the worst affected. Over 7% of the available land in the constituency is currently open to applications for solar, which have a reasonable likelihood of getting passed by this current Energy Secretary. That's massive and will destroy the area. And you've talked about jobs, but actually what about the jobs in agriculture? And what about the tenant farmers who are being thrown off their land for this solar panel income?
I'm going to pick up on farming in a minute, but just to bring you in, Tom, you were nodding a lot there during Caroline's first answer and the answer she's just given.
Yeah, I find myself in agreement with Caroline, which is an unusual situation to be in.
You're right this time.
But no, I completely agree. And it's not about NIMBYism. I met with villagers across my constituency during my summer tour, including in Scotland, which is home to the sort of childhood home of Guy Fawkes. And that village there ends up with an application that's going to wrap around it, covering the fields that currently have been farmed and are good agricultural land. And residents are rightly concerned. They say that they want to see green renewable energy, but there are concerns about when you've got windy village roads, how you're going to actually get the infrastructure in there in the first instance, the safety of the traffic management during that construction period, and as well, just the volume of the applications. It's not just one, but multiple going in. So I think there is wider questions about how we do this in a sustainable way, particularly when you sort of driving around Yorkshire, you've got the A1, the M62, the M1, all these massive distribution warehouses that are sat alongside the motorways with roofs that could have been covered in solar but haven't been.
But going forwards, that's absolutely the plan, isn't it? So we've talked about our hospitals and covering up to 200 hospitals, our schools. We've got a plan to look at all future homes to make sure that they've got solar on the roofs as well.
Pushed by Liberal Democrat MP Max Wilkinson with his Sunshine Bill, as a private member's bill that the government have now picked up. But this could have been happening a lot longer. Solar's not new, and it's disappointing that it's only now that we're talking about embedding that on roofs of buildings.
We've not only just started to talk about that, because I've been talking about that for absolutely years. So that's absolutely not the case.
Well, maybe we can find some criticism of the Conservative government before us that we can agree on.
Well, I want to bring Caroline in, but maybe not to go back to the Conservative government. But that you do raise an important issue about farming. I think, again, all parties want to see the UK being energy and food secure, and the Labour Party and the government, in a debate you held in the spring, seem to think those things can go hand in hand and actually farming can happen around solar farms. Why are you doubting that?
Well, it's quite difficult to do, and if you drive around and look at the solar farms that are already in place, you may find that a developer suggested that would happen, but you struggle to find out anywhere that it is happening because why do it once you've got the solar panel in place? So I think it's a nice idea in theory, but it doesn't work in practice.
Lee, you've reflected on sort of some of the opposition there. Does the government need to change how it's trying to sell this then? Because there's fear from the farming industry, fear from people living nearby, even if the overwhelming polls suggest that people want green energy.
I just think, coming back to the fact that as a country, we need to find other energy sources. And yeah, I think the narrative around this is quite fearful. There's quite a lot of kind of scaremongering as well. Having said that, I absolutely want to be really, really clear. This is also about working with our communities. It's really important that we listen. It's really important that we put it in the right places too.
And remember, of course, we can't eat glass. So if we put solar panels everywhere, the food still has to come from somewhere. So on the one hand, we may be importing foreign solar panels in order to create energy which we think is green, and then importing food from miles away with an increased energy footprint and perhaps reduced quality as a result.
OK, we've talked about something on the ground. Let's move to the skies now, because for those looking for the benefit of sunshine away from the UK, Doncaster Sheffield Airport is preparing for business again after the approval of £160 million of taxpayers' cash. Now, the airport shut 3 years ago after then owners, the Peel Group, said it was financially unviable. But that didn't detract supporters who said its reopening would be a significant opportunity for the Doncaster region. And this week, after taxiing for some months, the plans were cleared for takeoff.
I'm delighted because it will be the stimulus of growth for Doncaster, South Yorkshire and the wider north. More importantly, it'll give our young people the jobs and growth and the connectivity that they require. It'll put Doncaster on the map, not only locally, regionally, nationally and internationally. This will be the stimulus, the jewel in the crown that makes Doncaster the place to come and invest. So what I'm saying now is let's get the funding and let Doncaster crack on with it.
Well, Lee, this is in your constituency. Are you as positive and happy about it?
Oh, absolutely. I had some nervous anticipation before I went into the board meeting the other day to listen to it, and I came out super excited and elated. It's the thing that when I was on the doorstep speaking to residents, the one thing that came up every single time, and right the way through the summer, I've had people coming up to me in cafes and when I'm out at summer events saying to me, Lee, when is it going to open? When can we book our holidays? So hugely important for the area. 5,000 direct jobs, 6,000 indirect jobs, 5 billion in terms of gross value added to our local area. And it's got a great return on investment in terms of that taxpayers' money too.
The numbers sound impressive. Obviously, the previous owners couldn't make it work. How confident are you that what's different now?
No, I'm super confident. It's not without risk. All of these big projects always come with amount of risk. But both Fly Doncaster, which is overseen by Doncaster City Council, and then the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, who've done their own exercise to have a look at those Doncaster figures, the facts, absolutely says that it's a viable, really profitable. It has profitable potential. God, that's hard to say, isn't it?
It's an
absolutely viable project. So I see it being a huge success.
Caroline, your former Conservative MP colleague in the area, Nick Fletcher, who lost a seat at the last election, says locals should back it now because it's happening, but is doubtful that this decision should have been made in the first place. Do you share his concerns?
So, I mean, it's great to have an airport up and running, isn't it? It's great for people to go on holiday a bit more locally, great for business. So I think in that respect, it's very welcome, and I'm sure that Nick would welcome it in that respect. The concern, I think, stems from the fact that the combined authority did have the opportunity, as I understand it, to buy a 20% stake for 20 million just a few years ago before it closed. Now it's been allowed to close, and they're paying 160 million of taxpayers' money for a lease when it would have been better to have bought a freehold for a small amount in the past. And also, because it's now closed, and the airlines are not landing there, how do we attract the airlines to come?
So I've been speaking to the airlines for the last year or so, Caroline. I've spoken to them at conferences, I've had them down in Westminster, I've spoken to the trade bodies that represent them. We've got a lot of airlines that are really excited about it opening up. And now we've got the commitment, we will start to see those coming in and people being able to book their holidays. So a load of work has gone on in the background. We feel really, really confident. The airlines are lined up. We've already got a few that have absolutely said, we will be there, and I can't wait for people to be able to book. And that's the main thing for our residents. They are telling, I live there, my constituency, my residents are telling me we need to see that airport opened. It's great for jobs, it's great for ambition. Young adults are coming up to me saying, I want to be a pilot, I want to work as ground staff. This is the right thing to do, the airlines are lined up.
That's the sales pitch. I guess the seeing is in the believing. You're not quite believing yet.
I think the concern is in previous times airlines have been given incentives, financial incentives to come, but my understanding is the competition rules don't allow taxpayers' money to be able to use for that. And so how do they incentivise them to come without doing that, I think is the question that's been raised.
We've heard the concerns, we've heard the potential benefits. Where do you sit, Tom?
Well, it would be remiss of me not to plug Leeds Bradford Airport, nearer to Harrogate.
Well, do we need so many airports in our wider region?
Well, there's a point to be made there, there's, I think what is really interesting is the point that Caroline makes there in terms of just about the scepticism. I'd love to believe, I will believe it when I see it. I think there is across Yorkshire a positive wish to see that airport reopen.
100%.
But again, I think the deal and the sort of arrangements that have been struck, will they deliver for taxpayer value for money? I'm, yet to be won over on that.
So the Mayoral Combined Authority says it's a 2-to-1 return on investment for that money. So, Yeah, and you know, it was unanimously agreed by the South Yorkshire leaders at that board meeting that this is the right thing to do,
Why
and it
can
makes
you get
absolute
a
sense.
2-to-1 return on investment when a private company wasn't able to do the same?
It's the piece of work that's been done independently by a reviewer who's worked with other airports that says that money is absolutely there and it's viable to. And as you know, sometimes you need something that sparks. It sparks
that's what I want to
the markets
just before
as well.
we're going to have to move on very quickly, but just sort of in principle, is it worth taking? We know that the government wants to grow the economy. I think every political party wants to grow the economy. Sort of in a wordish, is it in principle right that the risks should be taken to grow the economy? Because if this works, that will grow the local economy. Should politicians be taking risks with taxpayers' money for potential huge investment to come after?
I'd like to see investment in buses and rail first, but planes are good and needed.
And there's investment coming in buses as well.
Where it's reliably a good idea and the risk is low, then potentially yes. And it depends on the scale of the money and the scale of the individual projects. You have to take them one at a time.
Okay, I think I know your answer from yourself.
Manage the risks and maximise the opportunity, and that is exactly what we should be doing.
Cool. Okay, finally tonight, the party conference season is upon us. People like me have got to go to them all, so you don't have to. And while it may be a platform for policies, last week it was also about performance.
I'm an insomniac, I'm an insomniac, staring at the ceiling, waiting for my phone to switch off. Yes, I'm an insomniac, I'm an insomniac.
You will go to bed singing that tonight. For those who didn't know, that's Reform UK's Mayor of Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkins. She was a music teacher and a vocal coach and has performed all over the world. Lib Dems are in Bournemouth in a couple of weeks. Will you be singing at your party conference?
I definitely won't be singing.
Karaoke's quite popular at yours, isn't it?
I probably won't be donning a sort of sparkly jumpsuit either.
Only probably. The Conservatives, Caroline, they're going to be heading to Manchester. Obviously, Kemi Badenoch's first conference as leader. What will the mood be like?
I think very positive. You know, everyone's interested in the policy renewal, all the various discussions in the different fringe groups about health, education, the economy, and how we can work to have a good plan to improve all of those. And
Lee, Liverpool for Labour. What will the mood be like there? Sort of now more than a year into government.
Well, we've just had the reshuffle. It's all about focusing now on the future and the next step. So yeah, it's about being confident, it's about going in with optimism, and it's looking at the future.
All right, well, I will see all of you at those conferences. You luckily only have to go to one. We'll be at all three. But that is all we have time for tonight. So thank you all for coming in. And thank you at home for watching. We'll be back after the conference season in October. But for now, from Westminster, it's good night.